What's the creative process in terms of like coming up with cool content from idea all the way to there's a episode available? What does
Uh,
that look like, and how much beer
Significant
is
amount,
involved?
as expected, but it that's been the funnest part. I think ask anyone, that's been through the process. It's it's surprisingly not as fun, I think, anymore because it's more of like get it out the door, efficiency kind of thing. And for the most part, I wish we had a
Yeah,
much bigger team making content. I think ultimately we will in the long run. But for us as a business, we were always trying to find like, well, how do we get ourselves out of being a linchpin and becoming like the candy coating on the entire business, but not every single thing rides on our creative team. And that was hard, and we'll talk probably more about the LMS stuff, but
yep.
from the process point of view, I think I actually even wrote a blog article about this, and we're going to probably do a webinar next month, I think, on storytelling. But the concept we were not good at the beginning, like just completely transparent. We didn't know what we were doing at all. And it took us a couple iterations to kind of find
Sure.
the stride. And then repeatability was what we always landed back on, is that if you're doing something over and over again, the only way to do it where it feels consistent is by being consistent. So we make this process of creating an episode from kind of the original data collection, which is like, what topics do we need to talk about this year or whatever it is. Then you have a bunch of things that you want to train on within those topics. Like that's all the vegetables stuff. So then you take that, everyone sits around and we do what we call a brain writing session. And very different than brainstorming where you come in and like start riffing off each other, because then the power leader in that group takes over and then everyone follows their lead. And it's not really that creative. So brain writing, we actually do have a blog article about this, is everyone sits down given the data, they all have the same data, and you think up of a story in your head in less than 10 minutes, real fast, about how you can apply that data inside of any story you think of. Everyone writes their own version of the story, and some of them are terrible. Some of them have really good stories. Some of them have good scenes. Some of them have good characters. But ultimately, everyone goes around the room and while drinking whiskey and or beer, of course, and ultimately just tells their story real quick. And what's fun about that process is it sets the precedent of like there's no right or wrong story. It's the whole idea of like say creative stuff that just came out of your head in 10 minutes so we can all use that to build a bigger story. And rarely have we ever
Yeah.
come out of one of those stumped. Like I think it's only happened like once or twice where we come out, we're like, yeah, all those suck. Like back to the drawing board. They've all stemmed something that has driven us to actually make an episode in one way or another. And from there, I mean, you go through
That's
the
awesome.
typical process of like, once you have that, then that turns into kind of like this concept, to turns into a story outline. That has some iterations, and that turns into a storyboard, and then that turns into like getting an asset list, and then it just evolves. But we've gotten so good at it, it's almost like a mini production studio now.